All right, Chapter 1 Introduction. The purpose and responsibility of the purpose of this manual is to provide awareness for the historical prevention policy procedures to be filed with the U.S. Navy activity. The primary focus is to provide with the Navy Public Works personnel with the necessary information properly identifying, preserving, the maintaining historical resources. These manuals provide with guidance and statutes, laws, regulations, federal, state, and officials attempting to coordinate with sometimes confusing and interrelationships among federal, state, and local requirements. This information should be used as a guide in appropriate cultural resource management. 121, Chief of Naval Operations, the CNO, through the OP44E is responsible for providing policy and procedural guidance for the Navy-wide Historical Archaeological Resource Protection, or HARP program. The Commander, Navy Facility Engineering Command, or Navy Facing ANCOM, the total advisory of the Chief of the Naval Operation for the Historical Resource issues of additional Navy Commander, Navy Facility Engineering Command is responsible for coordinating local commands to ensure the compliance with the historical resource preservation programs. This include the validation, military construction, Navy documentation effects for the current and potential historical archaeological sites, coordinated with the federal and or state agencies appropriate. 123, Engineering Field Division, the Navy Field Engineering Field Division, Navy Facility Engineering Command, and Engineering Field Divisions are responsible for working in field activities to ensure legal compliance with the historic resource preservation programs. In doing so, they often liaison between the activities of federal state agencies. The Engineering Field Division also conducts custodian of the Navy Facility Asset Database, or the NAFAD. This is the Navy wide listing resource of potential historical and cultural value. 124, Public Work and Centers, Public Work and Departments, PWC and PWD. A technical representative activity command officers of Public Work and Centers and Public Work Departments develop an appropriate plan for the maintenance and historical resource provided with the documentation, alteration, and disposal of these resources. The Public Work Centers and Public Work Departments must be knowledgeable of the historic preservation policy requirements so that the adequate information can be passed to the Engineering Field Division and the Commanding Navy Facility Engineering Command for the management of historical resource preparation and project documentation activities through familiarity with local historical resources and the prime advocate of the frontline historical archaeological resource management. 125, Shore Activity, the activity of the first line with the responsible identification and preservation of the historical resource. The activation commanding officer is personally responsible to ensure the legal requirements of historical resource preservation programs in the spirit that those requirements are all met in the existing potential historical resource under this jurisdiction. 1-3, responsible participation non-Navy. The Department of the Interior with the National Park Service is responsible for administrating historical cultural resource programs such as the National Register of the Historical Places activity should use established Navy National Park Service standard with the maintenance and repair, rehabilitation, and preservation terms. Historical resource. The Navy is not in business with restoring historical facilities. Naval Post National Park Services also provided with the interagency archaeological services that can be called upon with the Navy Facility Engineering Command and the Engineering Field Division. Provide assistance to shore activities. 132. The Advisory Council of the Historical Preservation. The Advisory Council of the Historical Preservation advises the President Congress of the Historical Preservation. Issued the National Historical Preservation Act of 1966, amended in 1980, created with the independent agencies of review of the Navy project of the may affect the resource currently listed on the eligible for listing National Registers of the Historical Places. The Advisory Council of the Historical Preservation Review normally files the coordinated with the State Historical Preservation Officer, ASHPO. State Historical Preservation Officer, the State Historical Preservation Officer is appointed by the governor to each of the U.S. territories to be technical administrative point of contact for the historical preservation issue within the state. They apply to the federal properties as well as the state and territory property. To the State Historical Preservation Officer is available with the advice of the consultant with the historic preservation issues. Coordinate with the State Historical Preservation Officer early in the planning of the process, mitigate delay in the reviews. The Navy may issue that the State Historical Preservation Officer in the technical process of selecting the expert preparing scopes of work. The State Historical Preservation Officer should be involved with any of the project that may affect the current and potential National Register property. Environmental Protection Agency. The National Environmental Protection Agency in 1969 established to ensure the protection and enhancement of the environment through the act of the Environmental Protection Agency recognizes as part of the ensuring the preservation of the historical, cultural, natural aspects of natural heritage. 135. Native American and other interested publics. Section 106 of the National Historical Preservation Act requires the Navy to take account of the interests of certain of the other organization persons to planning activities that may affect the historical property necessary to identify and seek the information from such of the group of the person to allow the opportunity to participate in the Section 106 review process. In particular, Indian tribes and Native Americans often they have concerns in the historical preservation issue to the extent beyond the lands that they currently own. For instance, the interest of relocated tribe and the currently owned for the instance the interest of relocated tribe and the ancestral homeland with the interest of the tribe of the lands near this reservation no longer in the Indian ownership. The state historical preservation officer should ask for help in identifying such issues within groups in addition with the Native American Grave Protection and Reparation Act of 1990 establishes that the Indian and Native Hawaiian artifacts of human remains are discovered in the course of Navy activity the property of the cultural group concerned that they must be properly inventoried and carried out for the Navy in return for the cultural group concerned. If these returns requested advanced planning and coordination with the Native American group is essential to avoid minimizing work stoppages in situations unless prior to the agreement has been made with the cultural group within which the remains of the artifacts are associated. The NAGPRA requires the immediate work of the stoppage for 30 days duration. Alright. 136. Local regional preservation associations. Local and regional associations can have a great deal of the influence on the historical preservation activities in their area while they are not regulating bodies that direct public sentiment relative to any of the preservation projects within the jurisdiction. Therefore, the beneficial of the Navy to work with the local associations as well as the federal and state agencies when planning the projects that they may affect the historical resources. 1.4 Process and Activity Responsibility. All federal agencies required by the National Historic Preservation Act of 1966 as amended in 1980 protect the historical projects and to they own and control. Agencies required to have them filed with the program to identify the inventory and nominate the Secretary of the Interior. Every resource that appears to meet the eligibility of the criteria for listing the National Registry. Historical place agencies required to see that their historical resources are not inadvertently sold, demolished, removed, substantially altered, or allowed to deteriorate insignificantly. At earliest stages of planning, the Navy is expected to take into account the potential effects of the historical property. The Navy provides the AACHP comments of all plans and projects of the programs likely to have affected the resource listed and eligible listing in the national registers. In order to meet these requirements, the Navy perform overall survey to determine where and what the source of the cultural the historical resource is, follows it up with necessary detailed surveys together with the basic data of the other cultural resources located, organized the data and the inventories in order to evaluate the consultation with the state historical preservation officer significant with the cultural resource, seek the determination eligibility listing on the national register, nominate the property to the national register studies of the potential effect of any of the proposed undertaking the National Register property, submit the findings of the State Historical Preservation Officer and the ACHP, and appropriate carries out all modifies and abandons the proposed agency proposed and undertaking execute and required mitigation procedures. Chapter 2 Historical Archaeological Resource Management.